welcome to another episode of Table Talks. I'm here with this group of beautiful people. Give them a hand. We're so excited. There's no one in the room.
Clap for ourselves.
Yeah. They're at home. You can clap. I'm so excited to have this conversation. We have some new guests here in the house. They're actually married, but they're sitting really far apart.
They're sitting far apart.
But it's okay. It's okay. The love is there. So we'll start with you guys. We'll do some introductions. You know us, but we'd love to get to know you guys. Who are you and what do you do at Emmanuel?
I'm Michael. I'm the Director of Technical Ministries.
And that means?
When there's feedback or something during the service, I get the emails.
The sound guy.
Yeah, basically sound guy.
And I'm Kathy Lewis, and I'm the Children's Ministry Director.
Nice.
Oh, and I'm Jody Grass, and I'm the Director of Adult Discipleship and Development.
And I'm Ken Korver, and one of the pastors at church.
Yeah, and I'm Johnny. I get to hang out with the youth, and I help out with the worship. It's very, very fun stuff to do. All right, question number 1. What is your favorite fall tradition? Kathy's got her coffee. Is it pumpkin spice?
Yes.
Ah.
I have everything pumpkin. Everything. Pumpkin pie. Not as much pumpkin pie.
But pumpkin candles,
Yes.
pumpkin colored pillows.
Yeah.
Wow.
When do you start?
As soon as my son Andrew allows us to, right? But no, usually around mid-September.
Okay.
Something like that.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, Labor Day. I decorate
wow.
for fall.
Ah.
Every year on that Monday, I decorate for fall. So I take things down, put different things up. I love fall. It's
Jody,
something-
you're kind of a pattern person.
I am very much a pattern person. And then I love to bake. So then starting Labor Day, it's pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cookies, pumpkin scones.
Wow.
I brought pumpkin muffins today to show
did.
you.
And they are
Yeah.
Thank you.
to die for.
Thank you.
They're good. They're good. I recommend them.
Yeah, I love fall.
Now, when does the Christmas decorating start? Is that like the day after Thanksgiving, or?
Literally Friday after Thanksgiving. Everything, Thanksgiving comes down, everything fall comes down, and Christmas goes up. And then my husband makes fun of me, but in years past, I'm getting better at it. But on the 26th of December, Christmas is done, house is cleaned up, we're back to normal.
See, we used to do the day after Thanksgiving too, and Natalie said it's not enough Christmas time at our home.
Oh,
so
so you
now
do
we
now.
started like early November.
Really?
And Natalie loves it.
Yeah.
And she lives for it. So
Yeah.
it's like we did all the trouble again to tree out of the garage and stuff. So we're just gonna stay up there for a good 2 months.
There you go.
So I guess we'll see this year when we do it, but that's when we usually start. You guys, so Pastor Ken, any fall traditions? Anything your family does?
All I can tell you is that when I was a child, we'd get pumpkins, and then you get the seeds out of them.
Yeah.
And then we would actually, like, my mom would bake them. and
Roast
you
them,
saw-
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I haven't had that for 30 years, and I'm still in pain, but that was a joy. So it's a fond memory. I'm bringing up a fond
Someone
memory.
can bring you homemade roasted pumpkin.
And they got to do it right. They got to
Yeah.
check with Shirley. to make sure
Yes.
they do it.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
You guys have anything else you do, or just
I
deck
think-
out the house with pumpkin
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean, there's a lot of fall decorating for sure. I think for me, I just love the cold weather and to get to wear flannel again. Like, it's not really a tradition. It's just more of a, like, oh, I finally have an excuse to put on a sweater, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
How does that contrast with like your love of shorts, though?
I usually just rock the shorts and then put the sweater on top.
Okay.
Way to go.
You know, I get the best of both worlds, you know. It's awesome.
It is the best of both worlds.
If you want to embarrass Andrew, you just put on some dad socks and rock it.
Yeah. Tube socks. Keep going. Maybe some leader on
For my family, we didn't do any like crazy like fall things, but now that we have our daughter, we've been doing a lot of like to carve the pumpkin and go to the pumpkin patch and this and that, and getting to experience that through her eyes is way more fun than like me going and trying to do something for myself. So that's something new that's been happening this year as we get to do all this cool stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we jump into our next question? So we've been meeting in person at church and with groups a couple months now after COVID. Well, COVID's still going, but now we're meeting in person, right? So what have been some of the celebrations and challenges of just coming back in person, getting to see everyone again? You guys have any challenges or celebrations that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'll go. Some challenges with kids, at least in children's ministries, is, COVID kind of messed with the developmental stages that they're in. And so some challenges have been like kids are now like 1 or 2 years behind developmentally and emotionally, it seems like. And so we're seeing that in ministry, which has been a challenge, but, you know, practice patience and grace like crazy. And so we're wearing our patient hat and grace hat a lot, which is good. But some celebrations, as we were talking as a family, COVID allowed us to really have time with Andrew and the three of us really diving into the Word every night. And so we have finally, like, we've tried so many different things to try to read every day together, and finally COVID has kind of allowed us to, every night we have a time at 8:30.
Wow.
We're all together and we're reading a chapter every day and we're talking about it. And
Wow.
and then we started based on a spiritual development that Jody challenges us in as a staff, grateful journal. So every day we're focusing on something we're grateful for. And I don't think without like that slow down, we would have necessarily been able to really find that rhythm.
Sure.
And we've kept it. So that's been
That's
really
awesome.
great
That's awesome.
celebration.
Yes. Yeah, anyone else?
I think there's, I mean, we know it's been a hard year and a half, obviously. I think, you know, some of the challenges is just kind of getting people back and comfortable getting back in and things like that. Some of the great blessings that have come from it, I mean, we have said it many times, like we were pushed to do an online thing that I think we thought we were never capable of doing. And I am really proud of our team. I think we do it well. And so the quality of what we put out, what we're putting out on a weekly basis now, we're reaching so far beyond what we ever imagined we would be able to reach. I mean, it just is so far beyond what we could have guessed. And that's God's plan, right? Like that's the Holy Spirit work. And so that is super exciting. I'm really proud of the way that we stepped in and continuing to minister in that way. It's things that we should never go back from. And so that's exciting. We have people, you know, for our Sunday worship all over the world that are worshiping with us, which what a blessing that is. But even in women's ministries, we went to online meeting on Zoom, doing our teaching through YouTube and that kind of thing. And so we had ladies from Texas and Las Vegas and Sacramento and all different areas that are part of groups. And so now that we're back in person, we are meeting with groups in person on Wednesday morning and Thursday nights for Women's Walk. But I also have one online group on Wednesday and 2 online groups on Thursday nights. And so it's for ladies that can't for some reason or would prefer not to come in, they get to meet on Zoom, and we do our teaching online. We still post it. We do live teaching for the people who are live. So there's just, it's exciting to see that kind of thing. And then one really quick story. I have a lady that, it was the first time I had seen her on a Sunday morning since COVID, and she came out from worship and had just been weeping, and she said, I was excited to see her, and so I said hello, and she said, Jody, you know me, I came to church once every 3 weeks before COVID, but when they told me I couldn't come anymore, I missed it. And she said, I'm back, and I'll be here every week. And I thought, what a blessing.
Wow.
I think we don't know what we have until we lose it.
Yeah.
And then we value it.
That's good.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So I feel like kind of the question is basically, what are we celebrating as we're back together and we've learned and struggled? So I join with Jody in celebrating our young staff and our tech, you know, our Michael in sound, our Johnny, our Bailey, our Andrew, our Peter, our team, because I do believe this has nothing to do with an old person. It has everything to do with God and younger people. But the online service is outstanding. The technical level of it, the beauty of it, the creativity of it. And Jody shared this, Mike DeMasters said it. Mike believes that between English and Spanish that we're touching thousands and thousands and thousands of people we didn't touch before. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm thrilled that we can meet together and see each other. I do believe that that's a game change when you get to be in each other's presence.
Yeah.
So that's been such a blessing. But I'm grateful that we can worship the Lord in many ways. You know, a hard thing was, you know, COVID was and is a divisive thing.
Yeah.
And I think the churches try to help unite people, and we mostly have by God's grace. But there's also been challenges because it's been a divisive time as well across our country and the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like for me a celebration is that through COVID it was almost like a reset button in a lot of ways for priorities especially, and I think seeing the fruit of the online ministries and kind of the changes we had to make to make services work outdoors, I feel like it allowed us to kind of reassess some of the things we were doing on Sundays too, and now coming back we're a lot more sort of streamlined, with our services, our service times. We have a little time in between services, and it feels different coming back, and I really celebrate that because I feel like that's a really positive fruit of COVID, even though, like you guys have said, it's been obviously a very challenging time. One of the challenges going back is just kind of trying to adapt all the changes as they happen, because thankfully the restrictions have sort of been lifted now, and so we're not having to adapt to, you can be inside, now you can't be inside, you have to wear a mask, you can't wear a mask, or now it's optional or whatever. Like we have that stuff we don't have to keep going back and forth on. But we got into a routine of doing like an online thing, and then having to kind of adapt that and go back into doing kind of a hybrid. It's different, and it's something we've never done before, and there's some challenges there, but I think for the most part, as things come up and we integrate them into our routine, it starts to become the new normal again, and I think the fruit of it is just worth it. So
yeah. And to kind of piggyback off of you, that was my celebration. I was so grateful for the team for a team that we have who is able to adapt so well to the changes. I'm sure in our personal lives, when we go home, we're like, what just happened? I'm so stressed out, or this or that, whatever. Praying to God to help us. But when we're here, when we're together, everyone was really patient. Everyone was really kind. Yeah. Like, this is a big deal. We've never done this before. And it portrayed well, like in the online services. I remember the biggest kind of challenge for me was we were doing online, we were doing outdoors, and then we started doing inside. So two different services. Michael felt the two, like those two services were very different from each other. We're trying to come back in, but we're still doing outdoors at the same time, and throughout the week we're filming. It's like, how do we juggle that? And I have to give big props to Mike the Master, who he's never gone through a pandemic either, but somehow in some way he's so organized, and he just leads us really well. I've never done it either, so he kind of walked me through like, hey, you might want to try this or try that, and really gave us the space to kind of play with it and be as creative as you need to be. Take care of yourselves and of your team, but we also need to get things done, right? So I just give him props for leading us and leading the charge in that way. And for a team who was able to juggle a lot of things at once, I'm really, really grateful for that. A big celebration for me was not only that, but that we were actually able to be together and worship God together. I remember the first time that we actually got to gather outdoors and sing. I could barely hear because it was through the masks, but I could hear people singing. And I'm like, I don't want to cry right now. Like I'm leading worship. I'm singing. Like, but I was about to. I'm like, this is what it's all about. Online is beautiful, but in person it does not compare. There's nothing like it. That's what we're called to do. So it was just really fun to be able to do that. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that and for opening your heart up a little bit. Now we have a question that came in, and if you have a question out there that you want to ask, please email us at the email that's on the screen that Bailey's going to put, because I don't remember it right now. But this is the question. Is there a difference between offering and tithing? Are we to give in all ways? Time, talent, and treasure. As a married couple, do you tithe as a couple or as an individual? So that's like a 3-4 questions in one. So feel free to just answer as much as you can or as much as you're willing to, and hopefully we can cover all of our bases here. So who'd like to start?
Well, I'll start, because people ask the question: is tithing just an Old Testament thing? Is that not a New Testament? Jesus actually said this in Matthew 23. He turned and he says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law, and you Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, your mint, your dill, your cumin, but you've neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former, you blind guides. And so this New Testament, Jesus turns and he goes, no, you go ahead and tithe. But make sure you're caring for the poor. There's a whole bunch of other things. And so tithes and offerings, a tithe is a 10%, and an offering is giving beyond a tithe. So people sometimes confuse that, but there's tithes and offerings. And then to the question, do you give as a married couple? My answer would be yes if you're a Christian married, like both of you are Christians. If you're both Christians, like, well, yeah, we have combined income and we're going to tithe an offering out of our combined income. I also know people that the one spouse is a committed Christian and the other one isn't. I wouldn't be forcing the other person to be doing something they don't believe in.
Yeah.
So that would be the first two thoughts I have.
Nice.
Yeah, if you actually look at the definition of tithe, it's 10%.
Yeah.
That actually is what it means. And so, and one thing I think I would say to that too is, it's important to give right when we get paid, because if we wait until the end of the month, there's usually not money left. We will have spent it. And so, like what we do is on the day that we get paid, we write our tithe check, and then we're ready to go. You can give on PayPal, you can give on
Jody,
our app.
you probably were modeled that by your parents, and Johnny was modeled that by his parents. And then my bet is your parents and you have learned, well, we tithe, but we also put money toward our future. Like it becomes like a discipline of life. Is that true?
You tithe, you save, and then you have what you live within your means of what's left. The other thing, like saying like the generational, so then when our kids got their allowance, thank you, for doing the little chores, they would get $1 and they got it in change. So on the dresser we would lay a dime and then 20 cents, and then they would get the last 70 cents. And so the 70 cents was for them to save up and spend on whatever they wanted. The dime was to tithe, and the 20 cents was to put in their long-term savings. And both of our kids are good with managing their money, but we modeled that, we taught that, so that it would be
really important.
Modeled. And then the other thing I would just want to add to that is, like, are we supposed to tithe a part of everything? So yes, God has given you talents. He has given you gifts. And it is our responsibility to steward those well, and we need to give those back as well. And so, there were so many years when I really felt like, and it wasn't a, well, I'll just say what it was. If there was an opportunity to serve, I would often look at that and say, well, God, you should choose that person because they're better, or you should choose that person because they're better. They should step in. I'll just stay back. But the truth is, when God gives you gifts, we need to use them. And so we need to be willing to step in. So step in.
Yeah, that's good.
Something that helped me was to remember every time that it's an act of worship.
It is,
right?
absolutely.
I love that you said that's the first thing you do, because it's biblical as our first fruits, right? We're supposed to do that. We're called to do that. And when I think of tithes and offering as an act of worship, the result of that is that I'm not thinking of it as a payment. I'm not thinking of it as a burden, but it's actually something that God gives me that I can actually use as worship. Yeah. And with that, then my talents, whatever I'm able to do, then it becomes an act of worship. And my time, it's no longer like Johnny's time, but it's how can I use this to serve God and to serve the church and stuff like that. So when I started thinking of it as an act of worship, it just really helped me, because parting from money can be hard. It was very hard for me. I'm sure it's hard for a lot of you out there too. But when I started saying, how can I worship you, God, through my finances, it just kind of opened a whole new door for me to be able to do it. What about you guys? How do you do it as a family?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of to stay with the subject of tithing and offering, I think I actually have a little bit of a different perspective. I think about tithing as like a guideline more than maybe a mandate. I know that, Paul kind of talks about giving generously, and being a cheerful giver. And so I think of like 10% is sort of like a baseline. And then I feel like we're free to give above and beyond that too. But I think of giving as an act of faith, because to me, I'm trusting God that He's going to provide for me in spite of the fact that I'm giving up, a little chunk of what I've earned, and that I'm not going to be destitute or, end up in the gutter or something because I'm giving this money away. So I'm taking some of my trust in my money away and transferring that to, okay, God, I trust you in spite of giving this up.
Sure.
So that's kind of like my heart behind
really good.
giving. And I think, we give as a couple. We, when we weren't married, we sort of just did our individual thing. But then once we got married, we just started going off of what we make as a couple.
That's good.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from him because I'm very much like a rule follower. So like 10%, but he's so generous, even though like he has those Jewish roots. And like when we go to same thing. Yeah. When we go to the grocery store, it's like the cheapest, best value, but it's like tithing. I'm like, wow, now you're so generous, tithing with God, or giving to God. But something God has been teaching me is this like little phrase. It's just money, and it's like, yes, it is just money, and we don't have to hold on. We can surrender. And so I know it's hard to do, but that's something that he's teaching me. So.
And I think like as a married couple where they're both believers, it's great to talk about it.
Yeah.
And to decide together what that's going to look like. And so that it is an act of worship for you as a couple. I think that's important too. But I like what you said too about if one's not a believer, we don't force that on.
What I just find an interesting thing is that when the year is done, it's interesting for me to look at what did God have us give, and my father would say invest. And then the other one is, and what did we invest toward our future here? And like those two, just the way I'm made, like I'm really glad when I see that going in a direction that I feel happy about. And then because I feel like because there's money that can get wasted in there too. So that's just a thought.
Yeah, so like we always say in the online services and in person, like tithing and offerings is an act of worship. I'd love for you to take 3 minutes to just watch this short video of our friends, Edwin and Sarah, who get to talk a little bit about how they tithe.
Emmanuel has blessed us through their couples ministry, through their preschool program for our son, through their care teams. Without their support and guidance, we would not be the people that we are today. And we appreciate them so much for everything that they've done for us.
We took part of the Transform series a couple years ago through our couples group, and we discussed about giving back, and giving with a joyful heart. Soon after, it just clicked for us. And we've been giving consistently, back to the church. When that series ended, I was able to sit down with one of the elders. I wanted to dig deeper, and this elder has been part of Emmanuel for more than 30 years. So he explained to me how has tithing really changed his life, not only his but his family's. Being the sole breadwinner of his family, his wife and kids, I thought to myself, wait a minute, like, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So that conversation really encouraged me to give back.
Proverbs 3:9 is probably the best verse that I want to focus on for that. It talks about giving your first fruits to God. And I think a lot of times we would not give our first fruits and then we'd have nothing left. It really wasn't at the top of our priority list, and then it ended up not on the list at all. So that gave us a roadmap of how to give and really why you do that, because it goes straight to God and there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. And it really kept our priorities straight and our hearts straight.
Before I met Sarah, I had a lot of bad experiences with churches and the misuse of funds. So I wanted more clarification, and I was able to reach out to elders and deacons and pastors here at Emmanuel. They sat down with me, showed me the budget, and that full transparency really helped me getting on board with Sarah, and we've been giving back ever since. So if you're skeptical, don't know where to start, ask questions, reach out. They'll be more than happy to communicate that with you, and go from there.
Giving has really grown our faith and our trust in God, and we see giving in a whole different light, in a whole different lens. It's really just changed the way that we give. We're not reluctant. We aren't doing it because it's a chore or on our checklist. It's really something that we're doing joyfully now, and that's just made all the difference for us.
We are called to be obedient with our time and finances, so I encourage you to give back to the Lord.
We have been greatly blessed through giving, and I encourage you to step in. God bless.
It's a great video, right?
Yeah, that
Edwin
is
and
great.
Sarah have a really, really great story.
I'm proud of them.
And it's very encouraging to hear, not only from leaders, but from our lay people as well, right? I have one last question. All right, we're filming this during, or actually before Halloween. So would you please share with us and with the world, and it stays in YouTube land forever.
Oh, good. Confidential.
Your favorite story of a time that you were legitimately scared, all right? It can be funny, it can be not so serious.
I got a great one.
Yeah, go for it, Pastor.
So when I was little, my brother Keith and I were going to stay home. My mom and dad were going to go in Chicago. They're going to go out someplace, and we were supposed to stay at home. And my mom said, "While we're home, don't watch anything scary on TV." We, okay, Mom, we won't watch anything scary. And Mom and Dad left, and then Keith and I'm like in 3rd grade, he's like in 4th, and we put on Dracula. I'm sure Keith did it, not me. And so a Dracula movie is on, right? And all of a sudden, we're getting so scared that we ran over to the kitchen, and we had knives and forks, and we were like defending ourselves if someone came in. And I remember thinking after, we probably shouldn't have seen that movie. But I would have loved to have a picture of myself doing that back then.
That's awesome.
And defended from Dracula.
Well, I have one about Pastor Ken.
What?
So some of you may have seen the video I posted, but Pastor Ken has been on this scaring jump scare kick with us staff. So he hangs out over in the brick building, and as many of you know, my office is in the activity center, so sometimes I have to go over to the brick building. So I'll walk over there, and this 2 times now he has jump scared me. The second time he said he saw me walking across the street, and he waited for me.
Premeditated, yeah.
Premeditated.
And he had a meeting to come to over here, but he waited for me and jump scared.
He scares my sister all the time too.
It's a spiritual discipline that I have. I'm good at it.
He is
I'm
so
good at
proud
it.
of me.
I'm trying to think he has like monitors with like,
Yes!
She uses a security system for it.
The things you don't know that we do here in the office.
But Kathy got me back.
I
to
did.
Oh, you're not telling that story.
Well deserved.
I think we'll try to put it here somewhere.
All right.
Good to see it. Please send it to me.
The link to the
Otherwise,
video.
okay.
So
Super fun.
my kids love to scare. So when they were growing up, they would love to hide around a corner or under each other's beds or whatever and scare. I'm not such a fan of being scared, but I do jump really easily because I get very focused on what I'm doing. So I scare easily. But this is a completely different story. So this was when the kids were little, and I didn't typically go to the grocery store at night. I still don't. But that night I really needed something from the grocery store. So Johnny said, go park under a light, make sure you park close to the door, be really aware of what's around you. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. And so I did all the things right. And I went into the grocery store, and I come out and just kind of hyper aware. So, you're a little tense. And I come, and it's not that we live in a scary area. It's just, you're just aware. So I was going to my car, and all of a sudden, as I'm getting close to my car, I hear these footsteps running at me. Oh, no joke. And without thinking, I knew I couldn't get in my car, so I turned around and I squared off the person that was coming, because I thought, I'm not going down without a fight. And no joke, this poor kid, my box boy who had bagged my groceries, he comes and he goes, oh, your card. I was like, I'm so sorry. So I scared him too. But it was good to know that I'm not going down easy, right?
There you go.
That's a great. I would love to see
In
that.
here.
I was ready.
I love that.
That's a good one, Jody.
So the kid was scared too.
He probably shares that story with his friends.
He probably does.
If he was on here now, he would share his version.
This scrappy lady thought she was going to take me down.
I'll tell you the one that's like stuck in my brain for the rest of my life. I was scarred. I actually shared it with Michael, and I'll share it here. Okay, where do I start? Okay, yeah. So I was really good friends with my next door neighbor, and he would come into my house unannounced. I would go into his house unannounced. We were just best friends. And one day I went to his house. I was looking for him, couldn't find him. I went upstairs to his room, and I opened the door. And as soon I was 7 years old. When I opened the door, I see a leg on the bed. I'm 7 years old. I didn't know what a prosthetic leg was. I've never seen one in my life. I didn't know you could do that. So I see a leg, and I try to run away. My legs lock. I was so scared because it was just a random leg in the middle of the bed. And in my mind, I'm running and I'm not moving.
It's like a dream.
And I'm like, what's going on with my legs? And my heart dropped, and I was just like, I can't move. Yeah. And then I ran out, and I told my mom, somebody lost their leg. Like, what's going on? So then we went, like, my mom took me, and then, no, it's my uncle. He has a prosthetic leg. And, like, the uncle came out, and he was like, see? And I was like, don't do that. That's so scary to me as a 7-year-old.
Right?
I'm like, but I was glad that it wasn't, like, a monster or something. It was, like, a person that needed a leg.
That's a great story.
So, But then I learned, like, okay. Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I was like 10 years old, and my mom and I took a vacation to Montana, and we went to Glacier National Park, which is very, very wild. Just forest, glaciers, lakes, lots of animals and stuff. And while we were there, I found in a gift shop this book called Night of the Grizzly, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm 10. I start reading this book, and it's about this grizzly bear who brutally mauls and eats like two people on the same night, 20 miles apart, and how they had to finally find the bear and kill it and all this stuff. And I got about halfway through the book while we were in Montana, so the whole time I was up there, I was like, oh gosh, because there's bears up there. Like, it happened there. It happened at...
The book was there.
Yeah, it happened at Glacier Park. So it was a local tale and true story. So I finished the book by the time we were in Arizona on the way back. Like, I read the whole book, and my mom was just happy I'm reading. And I don't think she really realized what I was reading. So we get back to Bellflower, where we live, and I'm like, Mom, can I sleep with you? She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm scared of bears. She's like, we live in Bellflower. There's no bears in Bellflower. When's the last time you saw a bear in Bellflower? And I'm like, the book, they talk about the bear. And she's like, is that what this is about?
That's good.
So, yeah, that was both hilarious and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of like when a clown dies.
Well, on that note, we're gonna finish this episode of Table Talks. But please send us your questions if you have them. We'd love to hear from you. You can also comment in this video. See what you liked. Leave a question as well, and we'll grab it, and hopefully it can be a next episode. Thank you all for coming. Kathy and Michael, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time to come and talk with us.
Thanks for having us.
Super fun.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.